AMG is changing, moving towards an electrified future. There are some who praise this new direction, some who simply accept it as inevitable, and others who fight against it. But today, AMG takes one of its biggest steps to silencing those who doubt.
This is the new plug-in hybrid C63 with a 2-litre inline-4 engine and an electric motor. The V8 is dead. Should be rubbish, but there's only one way to find out. It's definitely not rubbish off the line, is it? That new powertrain makes 680 horsepower and 1,024 newton meters of torque. So put your foot down and my God, it pulls. I mean, it's doing supercar numbers, 0 to 62 in 3.4 seconds, way quicker than the previous car. And even though the top speed is only 174 miles an hour, believe me, it shifts. Right, I'm gonna shut up now for a couple of seconds and just try and work out what's going on. Yeah, so the dominating experience is that torque, especially that low down torque out of low speed corners and the sheer speed in a straight line. It's a rapid car. The brakes are good as well, slows down nicely, but that traction, oh my goodness. That's the defining characteristic. Is it fun?
Fun might not be the first word that springs to mind when looking at the specs. The C63 has always been known for its howling soundtrack and as the cheapest way to enjoy a proper V8-powered AMG. With this new model taking a very different approach, not to mention the prospect of a price tag approaching £100,000, this particular AMG might be a hard sell.
I think part of the problem is that it has quite a boring powertrain, but also quite a boring design. I mean, yes, it's wider and longer and slightly more aggressive, but it doesn't really move the game forward in the same way that the BMW M3 did. Yes, it's got the badges and the exhaust, but from a distance, kind of looks like a diesel C-Class. Credit to the powertrain though, that's clearly where they've invested the time and money. It uses a 2-litre inline-4, the same one from the Mercedes-AMG A45S, but where that engine was mounted transversely, this is mounted longitudinally, and it has a new electric turbocharger which doesn't rely entirely on exhaust gases to spin up. Less lag, more power.
Nothing especially new there, of course, but the engine doesn't work alone. The C63 is a plug-in hybrid. At the back is a 204 horsepower electric motor with its own 2-speed gearbox connected to a 6.1 kilowatt-hour battery pack. The car also uses the AMG 4MATIC Plus all-wheel drive system, which means the motor can drive both the front and rear wheels, as can the engine, independently or together. So the drivetrain, while not as exciting as the 4-litre V8, is deeply impressive technically. How does that affect everyday use?
For me, there's good and bad with this hybrid powertrain. First of all, the good. It has an electric-only mode, which for me, driving around town, is brilliant. It's quiet, it's refined, and it's just peaceful, which is a massive change for a C63. The driving range isn't amazing. It's only around 8 miles, which is what, half a commute, but it's handy that the car has that feature. The car also has a range of different regen modes. So in level 1, there's barely any regen whatsoever. It just coasts along. And in level 3, it's quite aggressive. It gives you almost a one-pedal driving mode, although the car won't come to a complete standstill.
The suspension is very good on the road. It's smooth and the interior is comfortable, a lot like the standard C-Class. The highlights are of course the AMG steering wheel with extra mode buttons and the new supportive, comfortable AMG Performance seats. There's plenty of space in the back for passengers, but don't expect much in the way of boot space. The batteries and motor reduce storage to a pretty disappointing level.
Let's talk about the sound. That's going to be a genuine concern for a lot of people with a C63. I'm not going to lie, it is a bit of an issue. So I'm going to pull in right here and let you have a listen So it uses a combination of the ICE engine making real sound, but also fake sound from speakers on the outside and from the speakers on the inside. I'll give it a rev and let you judge for yourself. Yeah, that's not great, is it? It's nothing compared to the V8. With the V8, you could downshift into second gear and just have fun around town, being slightly antisocial and enjoying the noise, which was one of the biggest things about this car. But in the new generation C63, it's not there. But there is one thing that is there. Launch control. Race mode, brake, accelerate. Let's go. Oh, that is quick. 0 to 62 in 3.44 seconds. And let me tell you, I've got my cameraman next to me and the car is full of gear and it is still a savage off the line. That is what 680 horsepower feels like from a standing start.
Don't expect the performance to feel strong all the time though. If the state of charge is low, you won't get the full 200 horsepower of assistance from the motor. So sometimes this 680 horsepower car feels more like a 480 horsepower car, one that weighs 2.1 tons. And that's not all. If you're in comfort mode, just cruising, and suddenly decide to accelerate, despite the addition of an electric turbo and e-motor, the C63 can feel quite laggy.
So let me show you what I mean. I'll find a little straight. We're doing about 50 kph here. I'll floor it. You get a little punch from the motor, a downshift. Then the engine kicks in. The whole process takes about 1.5 seconds, which for me feels a bit too long. This car is meant to have over 1,000 Newton meters of torque, but in comfort mode, certainly, it really doesn't feel like it.
The responsiveness is better in Sport Plus and especially in race, but you may have to keep an eye on how you drive it so a depleting battery level doesn't lead to a disappointing drop in power. The full 680 horsepower lasts for only 10 seconds at a time if the battery is charged sufficiently. But surely straight line ability isn't everything. How does the C63 handle on a track?
So Mercedes have thrown everything and the kitchen sink at the C63 SE Performance to help it corner and accelerate and perform well on track. This is the first C63 to use an all-wheel drive system, so it just puts the power down outrageously when catapulting out of corners. It's also the first C63 to have all-wheel steering, which really helps it turn in and find your apex. What you do notice though is that the car is heavy. It's 2,111 kilograms or thereabouts. So it's definitely heavier than the previous C63. And that means that after a couple of laps, those Pilot Sport 4 S's begin to fade slightly. And as you get into these higher speed corners, it does scrub wide. You can feel understeer in this car, certainly. The balance is fairly neutral, but on these higher speed corners, yeah, definitely washing out wide. Let's talk about the sound. Do you know what? We're gonna have to live with it. The C63 is a monster no more in terms of the noise that it makes. I listened to these cars trackside earlier and they sound pretty disappointing, to be honest with you. Inside the car, it sounds a little better. They're piping fake sound through the speakers. But the loudest sound I'm hearing is A, the tires struggling to contain the weight, and also B, listen to that. Yeah, they don't like the weight, do they? And also B, the gearbox. Every time you change up, you hear a thud. And I don't think it's coming entirely from the box, it's also coming from the speakers. It's almost like a boom, a deep-throated oomph every time you shift. It's designed to make you feel more involved in the driving experience, but honestly, because I know it's fake, it kind of robs the experience slightly.
How do you avoid running out of batteries on track? Well, in race mode, you can ask the car to prioritize battery deployment for a single hot lap or for several laps. If you choose the latter, the car gives you a boost signal to tell you when it's best to deploy.
My dashboard is lit up, and when it lights up, you floor it and get to a kick down spot with the accelerator. push the pedal all the way down, and that's when you get the full potatoes and the car accelerates with its maximum horsepower. When you're going back through corners and lift off and regenerate, it recharges the battery so that on the next straight you can deploy the boost again. It's a little bit strange that you don't push the pedal all the way down to the floor. You have to kind of push it 95% of the way there, wait for a straight, and then when the boost lights kick on the dashboard, that's when you push it all the way to the map and deploy the full power. Yeah, so back to the original question, is it fun? Yes, it is fun. Is it as fun as it could be? No. Being honest, no. I think the previous generation C63 put more of a smile on my face, and part of that was down to the noise and the visceral nature of the car. The thing just sounded like an animal. This is competent and quick, certainly, but there's something a little bit, I don't know if artificial's the word, but something a little bit lacking in that final connection with the driving experience. It's quick and it's capable and it does put a smile on your face, but it does it in a very different way to the previous generation car. It's certainly capable and certainly enjoyable to hustle around, but I'm not sure if this is a car that you push 10/10ths on a racetrack. And equally, I'm not sure if it's a car that you can really exploit the full performance of on the public road. So it kind of sits in this weird halfway house of not quite track car, not quite road car that you can fully exploit. I'm not really sure what it is really, but I think it's just one of those cars that I'm just gonna have to spend a little bit of time with before I learn to love it. The future's different.